What if the man who once threw you the most lavish parties on earth suddenly looked like the devil waiting to devour you whole? On a gray May morning in Manhattan, Jamie Foxx felt that question press against his ribs as he stepped onto the granite steps of Federal Courtroom 12B. Cameras snapped like tiny lightning bolts, but he kept his head down, the collar of his charcoal suit hiding a scar thinner than a whisper. Proof that glitter can slash deeper than any blade. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed above a room thick with anticipation. At the defense table sat music, Titan Sean Diddy Combs, cufflinks sparkling, expression carved from ice. To the world, he was the emperor of glamorous nights and champagne dawns. To Foxx, he was the architect of nightmares too monstrous for tabloid ink. The bailiff's call for silence echoed off marble walls. Foxx drew a slow breath. Somewhere beneath the polished floor lay every secret he and singer-model Cassie Ventura had risked their lives to gather. Button cam videos, hush money ledgers, midnight phone recordings. If the truth survived today, it would shatter more than a single career. It would detonate an entire empire built on fear, fascination, and iron-clad silence. Foxx raised his right hand to swear an oath. Reporters leaned forward. Combs's eyes didn't flicker. Out in the hallway, protesters chanted for justice. In that charged heartbeat before Foxx opened his mouth, one thought thundered louder than the crowd. Tell them everything, before the darkness buys another day of silence. Sunlight barely cracked the skyscrapers when Federal Court opened its doors on May 14th, 2025, but the sidewalk was already gridlocked with cameras, cardboard signs, and whispering onlookers who'd skipped work just to breathe the same air as the unfolding scandal. Inside, the clock read 8:59 a.m. when the judge took the bench, and the room fell into a hush so sharp it could carve glass. Jamie Foxx, sworn in moments earlier, adjusted the mic and locked eyes with 12 strangers who would soon decide whether this case was gossip gone wild or the biggest takedown Hollywood had ever seen. The prosecution barely wasted a heartbeat. Mr. Foxx, tell us about the first time Sean Combs invited you into his world. That single question cracked open 2 decades of memories like an overripe pomegranate, sweet surface, blood red beneath. Jamie explained how a plain white envelope arrived at his Los Angeles condo in the summer of 2004, sealed with the faint scent of oud and champagne. Inside, a handwritten card and a plane ticket to a white party rumored to cost $1.5 million. Helicopters, imported sand, servants in tuxedo gloves, the kind of excess that makes award ceremonies look like potlucks. As Foxx described stepping onto that Long Island lawn for the first time, jurors leaned forward, transfixed. Everywhere he looked, power pulsed like a strobe. Movie producers swapping SAG secrets, senators sipping vintage rosé, Cassie Ventura crooning under neon palms. And in the center, Sean Diddy Combs, grinning like a ringmaster who just unveiled the world's greatest show. Yet even that glittering night carried an undertow. Jamie told the court about the velvet-roped hallway marked private, guarded by silent men in suits darker than midnight. He remembered an uneasy chill threading through the humid air each time those doors clicked shut behind certain guests, and how Cassie, then a rising star with eyes full of fireflies, seemed to shrink whenever they passed that threshold. The jurors' faces tightened, because if the first invitation felt like a fairy tale spell, the price of admission was already lurking in the shadows, but opulence was only the opening act, and the next invite would reveal just how crooked the spotlight could bend. If the first white party felt like a royal coronation, the next invitation landed like a dare. Miami, 20 guests, no phones. Jamie's jet touched down just after midnight, humidity wrapping him like wet velvet. A stretch SUV whisked him to Combs's Biscayne mansion, 3 stories of glass hovering over black water, its windows pulsing with a bass line that seemed to shake the moon. Inside, security collected devices in velvet pouches, then swept guests with wands that hummed like angry bees. Opulence, sure, but this time it carried the smell of gun oil and fresh paint. In place of 500 partygoers, Jamie counted 19. No photographers, no label reps, just the inner circle. Cassie appeared in silver silk, smile bright, yet strangely fixed, as though someone had pinned it in place. She brushed past him, eyes flashing a silent, "Stay alert." He didn't understand yet. He would soon. The mansion's west wing was roped off. 2 men, buzz-cut, earpieces, blocked the corridor. When Jamie glanced at a door marked Guest Lounge, one guard shifted to obscure the knob. Later, he'd learned that beyond that door sat bank vault locks, cameras mounted behind 2-way mirrors, and a soundproof room nicknamed The Aquarium, where secrets were harvested like pearls. But the first fracture came in the grand salon, halfway through a toast. Combs lifted a crystal flute and lauded his company's loyal family. Mid-speech, Cassie's champagne slipped from her hand, shattering at her feet. Silence swallowed the music. She murmured an apology. Combs's smile hardened just a fraction, and a handler guided her away. The band resumed, but tension lingered like static before a storm. Hours later, Jamie wandered upstairs searching for a restroom. He turned a wrong corner and saw Cassie flanked by the 2 guards. Her shoulders slumped, mascara streaking. One guard pressed a finger to his lips. Jamie froze, pulse hammering. That image branded itself on his brain. The starlet who lit up music videos now dimmed like a backstage bulb. Back downstairs, Combs noticed Jamie's rattled face. "All good, brother?" he asked, voice poured smooth as cognac. Jamie forced a nod. The mogul leaned closer. "Remember, privacy keeps the vibe right." A statement dressed as reassurance, stitched with threat. By dawn, guests departed in chauffeured silence. Riding to his hotel, Jamie replayed the night. The confiscated phones, the locked hallway, Cassie's broken glass. Glamour still sparkled on the surface, but now Jamie could hear it, the faint hiss of something fractured beneath. He didn't know it yet, but that crack would widen into a canyon, pulling him toward a truth so dark even neon couldn't hide it. Sleep never came easy after Miami. Jamie would close his eyes and still see Cassie's champagne shatter, the guard's black-gloved grip. He tried blaming jet lag, but each new party only sharpened the unease. First it was the cameras, little black lenses tucked behind orchids, perched above door frames, blinking red only when the beat dropped loud enough to hide their click. Jamie spotted one in a guest bathroom, aimed not at the sink, but at the shower's fogged glass. He mentioned it to a staffer. The man shrugged and said, "Security's tighter when the stakes are high." High for whom? Jamie wondered. Then came the whispers. A sound tech at a studio session warned him that Combs kept insurance, hard drives cataloging every private moment inside those mansions. Footage for leverage, the tech muttered, eyes darting toward the ceiling speakers as if they might be listening. By the next gathering, a yacht moored off St. Barth's, Jamie noticed the invisible choreography. Newcomers were steered below deck, returning dazed, pupils sluggish in the morning sun. He asked one model if she was okay. She smiled too wide and said, "Best night ever," yet her voice trembled on the final vowel as though a hand were squeezing it. The breaking point arrived in Beverly Hills. Another freak off invitation, coded in gold emboss. Jamie almost skipped it, but curiosity dragged him through the tinted gates. Sometime past 2 a.m., a runner tapped his shoulder. "Mr. Combs wants you in the blue room." Jamie followed, heart pounding like a snare. Halfway down a velvet corridor, he heard it. Cassie's muffled sob. He pushed the wrong door and froze. Small space, hazy with sweet smoke. Cassie perched on an ottoman, makeup streaked, a bruise blooming at her collarbone. Across from her, Combs paced, voice low and knife sharp. "Loyalty or exile? Choose." Cassie caught Jamie's eyes. Her own were swollen galaxies of fear. Jamie stepped back before they saw him. In the hallway, A guard appeared, expression carved from granite. "Restrooms are that way," he instructed, steering Jamie toward the exit like cattle through a chute. Outside, the night air burned cold. Jamie drove home in silence, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The parties weren't celebrations. They were auditions for obedience. He replayed every locked door, every confiscated phone, every forced smile. Patterns snapped into place like a vicious puzzle. Intimidation, surveillance, iron-clad silence. He could still pretend ignorance, cash the checks, and let the glitter blind him. But Cassie's eyes wouldn't leave his mind. Neither would the phrase he overheard as he left, the mogul's final whisper drifting from the blue room. Remember, cameras never forget. Jamie decided he wouldn't forget either. And the next time Combs summoned him, the actor would bring more than a party smile. He'd bring a plan. Because when the mask finally slips, the fallout is always fatal. And the first casualty is denial. Grief knocked at Jamie's door in late October 2004. Wearing no glitter, carrying no RSVP, Esther Marie Talley, his grandmother, prayer warrior Compass, fell to sudden heart failure, just as awards season posters with his face began crowding Sunset Boulevard. For the first time in months, he ghosted premieres and let voicemails pile up like dead leaves. In that quiet, he started to hear himself think again. And that's when Sean Combs called. "Let's grab a drink, clear your head," Diddy said, voice silk over static. Jamie almost declined, but loneliness is a sly negotiator. He found himself in a dim Hollywood lounge, wood-paneled and empty except for the bar's amber glow. Combs greeted him with cigars that smelled of cinnamon and power. They clinked tumblers. Jamie spoke about Esther, how she taught him that broken bones heal, but broken promises stain the soul. Combs listened, nodding, eyes shining with something unreadable. Then, mid-sip, the mogul leaned in close enough for Jamie to taste the whiskey on his breath. "You sure Grandma just went?" he murmured, rolling the word like dice. "Life's fragile, brother. Bills come due." The sentence sliced cleaner than shattered crystal. Jamie's glass trembled. Was that a joke? A threat? Before logic caught up, instinct fired. Fist met jaw with a crack that echoed off mahogany walls. Combs staggered, touched his lip, then smiled, blood mixing with grin as if pain were a punchline. "You gonna swing at everyone who tests you?" He chuckled, patting Jamie's shoulder as though taming a startled horse. "Remember who hands out invitations." Jamie backed away, chest heaving. The bartender stared at the floor, pretending not to exist. In that instant, all the locked doors, hidden cameras, and Cassie's silent pleas fused into a single revelation. This man trafficked in fear the way DJs spin vinyl. Effortless, rhythmic, profitable. Driving home, Jamie felt two new companions settle in. Rage riding shotgun, resolve gripping the wheel. He replayed Combs's words, the way they dripped with inside knowledge, as if death itself were just another chip to bet at his private tables. And Jamie realized that as long as he kept accepting invitations, he was gambling with more than his career. He was wagering his conscience, and maybe his life. He parked, killed the engine, and stared at the darkened horizon where city lights met smog. Somewhere out there, Cassie still danced around a predator's orbit. Somewhere, secret hard drives hummed, archiving sins. Jamie swallowed the last of his innocence and whispered into the silence, "Esther, I'm gonna stop him." Because glitter can blind, but grief can sharpen vision, and a single scar over the heart can map the way to war. Jamie disappeared from the red carpet circuit and surfaced in places paparazzi hate. Windowless basements lit by laptop glow. He called in Alex Carter, a cyber forensics phantom who once breached a Fortune 500 firewall with a coffee shop router. Carter's price was steep. Jamie paid up front, and in silence. Their mission was simple to name and brutal to execute. Capture the monster on his own stage without tipping a single spotlight. First, they mapped every square foot of Combs's mansions, from party photos, realtor drones, even paparazzi B-roll. Carter 3D printed replica doorknobs that hid pinhole lenses. Jamie practiced swapping the real ones in under 9 seconds. For audio, they embedded mics inside cufflinks because Diddy never noticed a man's jewelry when flexing his own diamond cluster. Cassie joined the cell next, slipping digital breadcrumbs past security like breath mints. She filmed corridors, staff rosters, invitation lists. In a notebook, she logged each freak-off by date, guest count, brand of champagne, and, most chilling, the number of sealed duffel bags delivered to an upstairs room nicknamed the Pharmacy. By 2018, the shadow record contained terabytes, grainy clips of Cassie escorted through locked doors, spreadsheets of wire transfers to shell companies traced back to island banks, voice notes where Combs bragged, "Insurance is everything. Collect now, cash later." Each file lived in triplicate, one on a Swiss vault drive, one on an Icelandic cloud, one buried on a thumbstick under Jamie's childhood home porch in Texas, clay hard as baked brick. Then came April 3rd, 2024. Cassie smuggled out a cell phone video. Hotel hallway. Combs's hand flashing across the frame. Cassie recoiling, muffled sob. Jamie edited out metadata and dropped it on an overseas social account. The clip hit 6 million views in 44 minutes, then vanished everywhere at once. Accounts wiped, mirrors erased, search results blank. It was the first time Jamie felt the weight of Combs's unseen reach, a digital guillotine that could decapitate truth before breakfast. But deletions leave fingerprints. Carter traced the takedown orders to a boutique Silicon Valley firm infamous for reputation scrubs. The discovery proved 2 things. Combs knew the shadow record existed, and he was willing to scorch the internet to kill it. Jamie doubled encryption. Cassie switched burner phones weekly. Carter moved his family to a safe house. They were no longer gathering receipts, they were surviving. And every sleepless night, Jamie replayed the hallway video, hearing Cassie's sharp inhale when the slap landed, fuel for a promise he'd carved into his bones on the night of Esther's ghost. We keep recording until the whole world hears the tape. Because predators thrive in darkness, but film rolls even when the lights go out. And the reel was almost full. Next, the night the predator struck back with poison and rope. February 4th, 2023, Los Angeles. The sky hung starless when 2 strangers arrived at Jamie's gate, pitching a gospel trap collab they swore Combs had blessed. Their smiles felt paste on, but the shadow record needed new angles, so Jamie, ever the actor, invited them inside. His shirt button microcam beeped once, live streaming to an offshore vault. Handshake turned chokehold. A hood blinded him. A fist to the neck numbed his legs, and rubber floors replaced hardwood. When the bag came off, dank warehouse shadows towered over him. Sean Diddy Combs stepped forward. No entourage, no champagne sparkle, just cold command. "You really thought you could out-record me?" he hissed, producing a silver capsule marked only by a smudged X. 1 dose, no autopsy trail. Jamie spat a curse. A goon pinched his jaw. The pill scraped his throat like tinfoil and battery acid. Darkness slammed shut. Hours, or years, later, a long-haul trucker braked at the sight of a man crumpled outside that same warehouse, glass bottle staged at his side. ER doctors chalked it up to stress-induced stroke. Headlines echoed the PR. Cameras weren't allowed in ICU, but Jamie's microcam never asked permission. Before blackout, it had captured Combs gloating, location coordinates glowing on screen, audio crisp, sleep tight, Foxx, game over. 12 days of coma, tubes, machines, and a nurse whose badge photo didn't match her face. Jamie surfaced groggy, sensed pressure on his IV line, and yanked the tube free. The nurse bolted. Later toxicology found traces of the same experimental neurotoxin, evidence someone came to finish the job. Alex Carter traced the warehouse feed, backed up in triplicate, fingerprints clear, voice print unmistakable. Cassie arrived with fresh files, wire transfers to a clandestine chem lab, Combs on recorded call laughing about invisible weapons. Jamie's pulse still stuttered from surgery, but resolve beat louder. He stared at the scar now carved above his collarbone, felt its heat, and realized the shadow record wasn't leverage anymore. It was a lifeline for him, for Cassie, for every name buried in Combs's vault of fear. Next stop, a federal courtroom where cameras can't be erased, and 12 jurors will decide whose story survives the light. The mahogany doors of courtroom 12B groaned open at exactly 9 a.m., and every eye followed Jamie Foxx as he crossed the threshold. No sunglasses, no entourage, only a slim folder clutched like a live wire. The judge nodded, the oath echoed, and hush settled thick as winter fog. Jamie's voice started low, almost conversational, recounting glimmering parties and velvet corridors. Then he pivoted. "Your Honor, the next exhibit speaks for itself." A single nod to the prosecution, and the lights dimmed just enough to throw a grainy button cam video onto the projector screen. There on the wall stood Sean Diddy Combs in the warehouse gloom, silver capsule glinting between his fingers. "Sleep tight, Fox. Game over." The audio rang like a hammer strike. Gasps rippled through the gallery. A juror's pen froze mid-note. Defense counsel leapt up, shouting deep fake, but the judge waved in the forensic analysts already waiting in the wings. Chain of custody papers, checksum logs, voice print spectrograms. Authentication wrapped the clip in steel. Court resumed. The video stayed. Next came the spreadsheets. Dates, shell company names, six-figure wires to anyone who could bury a headline or hush a victim. Jamie read each line, let each number hang in the stale air. When his hands finally lowered, the courtroom felt smaller, as if truth had sucked out all the oxygen. Cassie followed, tear-rimmed yet unshaken, corroborating every timestamp, every scar behind her makeup. By the time she stepped down, the defense table looked less like a power station and more like a sinking raft. Jamie glanced once at Combs. No words, just the faintest tilt of the head, as if to say, "Your empire heard its verdict the moment the cameras rolled." Then he turned to the jury and ended with a sentence that landed like a closing gavel. "Silence is the cheapest currency in Hollywood. Today, it's bankrupt." The judge recessed. Reporters bolted for the doors. Outside, chants already thundered against courthouse stone. Inside, 12 jurors filed out, carrying the weight of the real they couldn't unsee. But empires don't crumble in one room alone. Next comes the shockwave that rattles every marble hallway from Wall Street to Rodeo Drive. News doesn't trickle anymore, it detonates. Within an hour of Fox's testimony, Diddy exposed and ad embry justice. For Cassie, swallowed every social feed from Lima to Tokyo. Stock tickers for Combs-branded vodka, clothing, and media ventures bled red. Brand managers scrambled like stagehands, yanking neon signs in a thunderstorm. One luxury fashion house deleted 3 seasons of campaign photos overnight. Its website briefly showed 404 errors where Combs's face used to live, like digital crime scene tape. Inside the courthouse, the judge revoked bail after prosecutors unveiled a fresh FBI affidavit linking Combs to offshore labs manufacturing that neurotoxin X. Outside, protesters drummed plastic buckets, chanting, "No more hush money, no more fear." As marshals escorted Combs through a tunnel of cameras, a reporter shouted the only question that sliced through the noise. How many more tapes are out there? Combs's silence weighed more than any answer. Jamie Foxx stepped into the sunlight. An hour later, pulse hammering in his ears. He could taste burnt metal from courtroom coffee, yet the air felt sharper, almost clean. Cassie joined him on the steps. When she reached for his hand, flashbulbs flickered like distant artillery. "Phase 1's done," she whispered. Jamie nodded, but kept his eyes on the swarm, knowing every lens was also a ledger of accountability. Back at a safe house, Alex Carter began sifting through the Pandora drive, terabytes still sealed behind triple encryption. In those folders hid emails from Grammy-winning producers, D-list fixers, even a sitting senator caught negotiating event insurance. Each name was a tinder spark in a forest of reputations. Strike one, and the whole canopy could ignite. Yet questions loom taller than any verdict. Will a jury convict a man who once seemed untouchable? How deep do those hush money rivers run? Labels, law firms, lobbyists? And who else appears in the backups Foxx hasn't dared open any yet? Next episode, we pull the curtain on 5 power brokers Hollywood prays you never hear about. Their signatures sit on wire transfers, their voices mutter on late-night calls, and their fortunes teeter on the brink of your screen. So hit subscribe, smash that bell, and drop your theory below. Who's the first domino after Diddy? Because the spotlight just got hotter, and secrets this dark can't survive daylight for long.